enemy power-up detected.
Host 7 Mech Warriors, it's your boy Captain Cat here, joining you for another episode of Incoming Missile, a Mech Warrior online podcast. Well, it was April last time we had Calon and Notbob of Aces Wild on the podcast. We've got them back in the pod lab to reflect on how it went now that ISC Season 2 is all behind us. We chat to them about what they learned and what they might do differently for a potential ISC Season 3. We also drill down a little into the comp meta and examine the levers you can move in forming your tournament rule set and what effects that has on gameplay. A couple of announcements. Looking towards the horizon, we have a couple of one-day events coming up. Renegades 3s, that's a one-day 3v3 event scheduled for 3rd of August, so sign a team up now for that. Heroes vs Zeros is another one coming up, so check that out as well. And finally, we have the MWO Championship Series 2019, which is a community-run stand-in for Worlds this year. The details for that are still being worked out, but I expect to hear about that very soon. So, plenty of competitive play out there to scratch your high-level MWO edge. Be sure to join the MWO Comp Discord and follow the MWO League's Twitch channels, so you don't miss any action. And better yet, get your homies and map strats together and sign yourself up to play. As always, a big thank you to our patrons, Dan N, Ryan Craig, Jondoeiowa, MWO Comp, Sawyer, Shaky Snake, Brios, Chilgapsan, Night of the Day, Robin M, and Nikoro Doomguard. Your support is fantastic, so if you see these guys in game, give them a GG from us. And if you did want to support us in more tangible ways like these amazing Mech Warriors, you can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. So look for Incoming Missile Podcasts on Patreon. Well, let's crack on with the show, shall we?
Target engaged.
Right, so if you've been following along, you'll know that the Inosphere Coalition, the 6v6 Inosphere only tournament, is wrapped up now. And you may have caught the post-comp episode we did around the performance of the teams, the mechs and strats. Cozened did power of work doing all that stuff. So if you haven't, go back and check those out. But today, we're going to zoom out of the mech stats and we're going to talk to tournament organisers Calon Farstar and Notbob from Aces Wild about the competition itself and reflect on some of the wider questions about putting together a tournament of this kind. Specifically, we're going to chat to them about the rules and format of ISC, which was a little different from what we've seen lately, and then reflect on some of the things they've learned from organising. So, welcome, Calon and Notbob. How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, great. So, tournament's all wrapped up. What's the main feeling? Is it a bit of relief that it's finished or regret that it's over?
Both, I think, and just pretty much overall happy how it went. We didn't lose a single team throughout it, and everybody seemed really positive at the end, and we're considering it a pretty solid success.
And I know that Notbob, you were piloting in the tournament, and Calon, you're more sort of running things and puppet master behind the scenes. Is that about right?
Yeah, I pulled myself out of the playing side of it just so that I could remain objective and manage it from and also be a referee for any of the issues that came.
I guess it's nice to get sort of the two perspective, one from the sort of arbitration and one from on the ground, as it were.
Exactly. And, well, I was also a player. I did a lot of the admin stuff in terms of, like, keeping up all the data and sheets and like that. And it kind of worked out for everyone involved, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did what appeared to be a huge amount of work.
Yeah. So it looks like a huge amount of work, but because all the systems we have in place are kind of transparent, it actually wasn't too much, but it still was a decent amount.
Yeah, we were able to automate quite a bit of it using Google Docs and stuff that really smoothed things out for over.
Yeah. What you guys introduced for that side of things was really cool with the engine website being able to run over all the data that you need whenever you needed it? How many Discord messages did you end up answering?
Oh God, I don't even know. Tons.
Mostly the roster updates were the big ones. We had a lot of changes to the roster over the tournament.
Yeah, you seem to be available pretty much any time, day or night.
Yeah. Because who needs sleep anyways, right?
And Calon, I think you were at sea for some of it.
I was actually for a little bit of it, and I was still able to get just enough internet to make sure that I was updating the results and the MC payout. So that was a big part on my side where Notbob was handling the roster updates. But yeah, just that drizzle of internet I could get out there on our VSAT satellite internet was able to let me keep updating. And thank God I wasn't playing, because there's no way I could have played out there with 900 ping. It would have been terrible.
What you don't know is it would be the same type of skill you'd see. I mean, what?
Ooh.
Just kidding.
I mean, it makes you harder to hit as well.
Yeah.
If you're 1 second away from where you should be.
Right.
You know, with that in mind, how much work you guys did end up doing, how much you had to make yourselves available, and all that arbitration or that kind of thing. You know, has it put you off running another one for a while? You satisfied that?
No, not really. I think we actually want to run a ISC season 3. I don't know how soon, but we kind of want to run another one not too long, because it doesn't really seem, it seems like a lot of work, but it also doesn't seem like a lot of work after you've done it. You're like, oh, cool, that only took 3 hours tonight. Cool, not bad. I can do it again. so then, yeah, it's not bad at all. So I'm actually really excited for when we bring it up again. We're still trying to figure out time knowledge and stuff like that. But it really hasn't put us off at all in terms of wanting to run another tournament or even more or different tournaments.
Gluttons for punishment, hey?
A little.
It's more about the timing right now of when another MWO Comp tournament would be a good time to run.
Yeah. We're definitely spoiled for choice at the moment with tournaments.
Yeah, there's like 3 at once right now, and it's like, oh man, that's a lot. So it's kind of hard to set up teams, and then unfortunately, like the Summer Grand Prix, it's had a really weird time for myself on Saturday, so I can't really make them. But it's like, oh man, there's like 3, the Summer Grand Prix, the 228th one going on, or Heroes and Zeros is going on, and well, third one. But yeah, there's a lot for choice right now, so we kind of want to let Renegades, that's the one. So we're trying to let the tournaments kind of run down a little bit, so there's less going on the way. Because ISC isn't exactly a small commitment with the 6v6. We kind of take it akin to like more or back in the day MCW and MRBC. So we kind of think it's like a pretty large commitment, where I feel like Summer Grand Prix, well, it's still a big commitment. I don't think it's as big as a larger 6v6 format. That's just my opinion, because I'm a little bit biased there, but I just feel that way with the larger group sizes. It takes a little bit more to strategize, get your deck set up, get your teams prepared, get the maps all set up. Where 2v2, it's a little bit easier to practice, because you can actually just drop into Solaris or private lobbies and practice exactly what you need, rather than trying to find 8 or 12 people to make a lobby so you can do some matches and test out your strategies.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I said there's a lot going on, but it should be noted that these are all going to be sort of single day or, you know, over a couple of days type events. So it's going to be quite a different situation to one of these, 6 or 7 week long tournaments. And it's, fairly manageable to take part in all of them, I think, if you want to. So I think we'll come back to ISC Season 3 in a later part of the show. But for now, let's come back to the one that's just finished. We had some rules and parameters around the tournament that were quite fun, that we had never seen before. How do you think that those went? I mean, let's just run through some of the things. The 6v6, is that something you would use again, change?
Definitely. I think the 6v6 was very popular. Everybody I spoke to liked that format.
Yeah, the 6v6 seemed to have a lot of fun. I think it's also a lot more manageable for newer teams. And so we're probably going to be keeping that 6v6 format, and obviously Inner Sphere only, because it is called the Inner Sphere Coalition, not the Inner Worlds Coalition,
Mm-hmm. So I've had a little bit of conversation lately around the tournament team sizes and things like that. I mean, I saw one pop up. Why isn't there a 12v12 tournament? We've had MOR, which was 8v8. Yours was 6v6. We're talking about 3v3s and 2v2s with Renegade 3s and Heroes and Zeros. What is the difference? What is the advantage? Why is competitive play generally 6v6 or 8v8?
So with 6v6s, a couple different reasons why I feel like 6v6s, 8v8s are a little bit more ideal for a competitive setting in MechWarrior. One of the biggest reasons is it's much easier to find and field teams. While MechWarrior is still a decently large community, it is not exactly growing, but it's kind of stable. So as people burn out, it's harder and harder and harder to get a full 24 people for one day to set up a scrimmage each other or set up a match. So it's a lot easier to manage with 12 people that you have to find in one day to work versus 24, which especially with this older community that, we all work jobs, yet people have lives, families. It's really hard to set up times with all 24, where 6v6 is a lot easier on the people to set it up. It's also easier to set up drop decks. Of course, then again, that kind of goes back to the ton limits, but that's a different story there. But also with the 6v6s, it's honestly a little bit more fun because you're using the same amount of map with a smaller number of mechs, so you can do a little bit different strategies than you'll see in a 12v12, where honestly, there's just probably too many people to do like a big flank like that without being completely outnumbered. Where if you do like a 4 and 2 flank, it's like, okay, you have 4 mechs here, where are the other 2? And you kind of have to really pay attention to them. Where in a 12v12, you don't really have to worry about the other 2 that are just kind of chilling out, doing it for a flank, whatnot, as long as you can win the main engagement. Where with a 6v6, if you win the main engagement, you can still possibly lose if you do enough damage out there, because every mech does matter a little bit more than that.
I mean, to me, one of my key sort of rationales in my head for a smaller than 12 team size is that it seems to me that the more players you get, the more sort of random it's going to be. Where if you have a little, like you're saying, a flank going one way and you stumble into 6 people, it's going to be less dramatic than if you stumble into 12 people. The number of guns on the field that can target 1 or 2 people at a time is going to dramatically shift sort of the dice rolling aspect of the game, where it just feels, I guess, more competitive, to use that word, to have to reduce those sizes down. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so that's actually a pretty good point. And then with most maps being all the tournaments basically running conquest or something of that similar nature, it makes going for those caps more of a thoughtful decision rather than, all right, yeah, we're going to send you to the cap right away, versus, ooh, this is Grimplex. This is kind of a big map. Do we really want to send 2 of our mechs off to go grab a cap over here? We'll be down 2 heavy hitters versus 6. So I think it actually does affect decision making on the maps a lot more than with a 12v12. It's like, okay, I can send whole lands off and nobody will care.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see a 12v12 tournament, see how it plays out. But that sort of covers the upper limit of and this is quite an interesting topic to me. So forgive me if I drill down into it a little bit, because it does seem relevant right now as well with these tournaments that we've been talking about, and also with the World Championships as well coming up. We've got to be talking about what works and what doesn't work. So that deals with the upper limits. Bringing it down from 12 to 8 or 6. Makes sense. But what about reducing it further past 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1v1s? What's the difference there?
So the difference there, I think if you're under 4 pilots, strategy, or 4 pilots, so it's like if you go 4v4, 2v2, 1v1, I think a lot of map strategy actually gets kind of not necessarily thrown out the window, but it matters a little bit less than it would in a 6v6. So like if you do like 1v1s and 2v2s, I used to participate in a ton of 1v1 and 2v2 tournaments back in the day. And just about everyone I could enter, I entered in. Did fairly sensible, but a lot of them is, hey, all right, I like this area of the map. I'm gonna wait here, or I'm gonna force my opponent into somewhere else. But from that point, it depended 100% on your skill versus the other person's skill, where there's really not too much deception or map trickery going on. So it kind of limits your options and what you can do in it. Because with 2v2 or 3v3, you really don't want to send one guy around flanking because then you've lost quite literally a third of your firepower, or in case of 2v2, half your firepower. And if you get caught out and you're not in position to do it, you're just going to get hammered and lose. Or if you do the flank, it might not be successful because you're no longer hitting the same components. One guy will be hitting from the side or back, another guy will be hitting from the front, or both guys on the other team will be hitting from the front there. So I think it kind of limits your opportunities for map control, map strategies in those really small tournaments myself. That's not to say I don't like them. I think it just limits the potential for that.
Yeah. And I mean, we're relating it back in the end to what you guys might want to do next and what you're sort of reflecting on for your tournament. So it's okay to sort of critique it from that perspective. I think, yeah, to tack on to what you said, the smaller sizes tend to descend more and more towards brawls, right?
Yeah, because you can't really play. I mean, you could play long range, but it's very hard to consistently play long range the whole time versus 2v2. So, like, let's say you take 2 long range mechs, like a Mad Cat 2 and like a Hellbringer or something like that, just throwing 2 random mechs out there that are decent at mid range or long range, versus something like 2 linebackers. Well, unless you get so much damage on them beforehand and break their legs or their missile arms, whatever, you're going to be in a real bad time when they get up close. And it almost doesn't make sense to go long range, especially on maps where it is 2v2. You can just stay in the little corners and you won't get a whiff of them until they're right on top of you.
You need those other members of your team to be standing up the front to protect you from a light swarm or whatever if you're going to play range. And it'd be interesting to sort of have a look at what point below 6 those sort of range roles or role warfare, to use that trigger word, would stops becoming viable.
Yeah, I think even in 6v6s, you kind of started seeing that become less viable. There were a couple obvious exceptions, like on Grim, for people where actually the map strategy kind of changed the way to go on the back after everyone saw EMP use it. And it's like, oh crap, this is a great spot. And that was kind of one of the few maps where you did see range versus like Mining Collective, where you actually saw a lot of brawl versus a lot of range like you'll normally see in quick play, because it's just more viable for a smaller map like Mining with not super long sight lines, but like medium-sized sight lines there. So it just kind of makes sense to go brawl in a lot of maps into 6v6. Where I think with an 8v8, I think you'll see a lot more range on Mining Collective than you did with ISC. So I think 6v6 is probably the lower limit where you'll see range-focused teams transition to brawl.
I think the 6v6 is kind of the sweet spot in size for the point where you start losing your strategy, team strategy, and you start going into more tactical mech on mech combat. You can still actually do a strategy of we're going to cap this time versus we're just going to try to focus on the combat.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's we spend a lot of time on that one little point. So we've got the Innosphere only. You guys getting rid of that?
Nope. That is going to stay as long as this competition is going to be around.
Innosphere Coalition, got to be Innosphere.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
But how did you feel? Like, what was different about running an Innosphere tournament compared to either a mixed or, I've never seen a clan only, but if there was a clan only, what would be different there?
Oh, I think if you did clan only, you'd have some of the same things that came up this time with Innosphere only. We started seeing some mechs that aren't normally showing up in the comp games where it's combined Innosphere and clan. The Vulcan, for example, I think it really had a niche in the Innosphere only. I don't know if we'd see it as predominantly if it was a mixed tournament of clan and Innosphere, but I think if we did a clan only tournament down the road, or somebody did, you're gonna see that come up too. Maybe a clan mech that normally doesn't get used will get used, and adds more variety to the overall gameplay, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I agree with you on the Vulcan in particular, because I think the Innosphere medium pulses are just really strong in any setting right now, and the Innosphere pseudo lights just dominate. And I think we'll continue to see the Vulcan. I think it was found in the ISC kind of thing, because it came available not long before it. I think we'll continue to see it in comp play, but I guess we'll see how that prediction bears out. But I do agree with you that there is mechs that you'd see in an NSV only tournament that, like the Grasshopper that you see in Notbob, maybe would be replaced by other things, because you start as a drop deck crafter or a drop commander, you see a gap in your team where you need a clan mech, basically. I want a Hellbringer. What can I use instead of a Hellbringer?
But I think the biggest difference, I think, versus Innersphere versus Clan is, I think with Clan, you'd see a lot more range, because Clan honestly isn't great for brawling due to like the longer burn times of the lasers. Even though everything weighs a little less, everything just has such a longer duration to burn it, for the burn times, especially on the lasers. And generally, the mechs really don't have good geometry for brawling, with maybe one notable exception, which I would say the linebacker. But even then, that thing is super squishy to range. So you might not even see the linebacker for brawl. So I think you'd see a lot of range decks in a 6v6 versus in a sphere where a brawl is a much more suitable option or a much more desirable option versus a clan 6v6 only.
Yeah, I think with the tankiness of Innisphere needs to be mentioned in that conversation.
Absolutely.
They've got all the armor and structure quirks like the Vulcan, the Assassin, all that kind of thing, Wolfhound. And that, as a player, I quite enjoyed how it really slows the game down, because you can take a punch, you can make a mistake.
Yeah, you can make a mistake and not die immediately or get cored out, and then you have to play incredibly passive. So it does lead to maybe not necessarily more mistakes, but it leads to a little bit more aggressive gameplay or aggressive long range trading, because you do have that extra armor. Or with a brawl, you can have a lot more of a fun brawl, because people are living forever. It's like, oh snap, he's at 20 health. Oh god, he's barely alive. Oh god, get him down. And then it just keeps on going, and then you get him down, but then like two mechs on the other side die, and then another swings back and forth. So I think Intersphere brawling is probably one of the funnest things to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you combine that with the lower DPS as well. The clans can just pump out a whole crap load of damage with one alpha that the Innisphere just can't quite match. And so combine that with the armor, then it's just slows things down. All right, so let's move on to the next aspect. You guys had a 325 tonnage limit. How did that bear out?
So we got a not necessarily a mixed feeling about it, but we had a couple of suggestions on it, saying that we might want to increase or change the ton limits as the drops go by, because a lot of people are saying, hey, we're only seeing the same 10 mechs across all the drops here. There's not many assaults or heavies that can even get played with that limit. So I think for next time, we might be adjusting the limits, maybe like a gradual increase across the drops or a gradual decrease across the drops, starting at a higher tonnage limit, just so we can see a little bit more variation in mechs played. We're still kind of working out the details on what exactly the ton limit would be. But I think for the most part, especially in terms of like new teams getting their feet wet in comp, having a set 325 tonnage limit was actually very good, because it also helped with mech selection, I should say, also, because you did have to use the same tonnage across all the drops there. It did help and create a more diverse playing field and a more interesting drop deck selection strategy, because you only had that one tonnage limit across it versus a graduating tonnage limit.
Yeah. One caveat that I'd have for a decreasing tonnage thing that we've seen from MOR, I think we should learn from that, is that if you start with a really high tonnage, it obviously forces you, in effect, to take a lot of very slow mechs, and that in itself really changes up the game. Not just the fact that you've got the assaults on the field, but that you're slow moving.
Oh yeah.
And when you've got a big, lumbering, slow-moving team, looms in particular become very effective, because you can't get out of the way of them as easily. And obviously ATMs and things like that in that same breath. So that's one thing I'd bear in mind. If you're gonna start big, then you go slow as well.
Yeah, and I think also with the higher tonnage limit, you really got to be a little bit more careful about the map pool that you have in place for it, because you don't want to have something like Polar Highlands where it'll take 30 minutes to even see the enemy. I mean, obviously that's a little bit hyperbole, but you don't want to spend half the match walking to try and find the enemy on a giant open map point to get them down. See that nothing quick, but you don't want to really bring that in comp setting here. So I think you got to be a little more deliberate about what maps you choose or what map pool you choose with that higher touch limit, because you don't want it to be a boring walk fest, only to have basically nothing happen. So it does actually change the admin side as well in terms of consideration for all that.
Yeah, so I mean, let's combine that with the conversation around the map format that you guys had. You had quite a tight map selection that just rotated around. We did have a switchover sort of about 1/3 of the way through where we switched to different map. I think it was about 1/3. One thing that I liked about ISC that maybe some other people didn't really click into or didn't like as much was that you get to hone in on a map. So you get to bring a drop deck to a map and see how it works, and then you know that you're going to play that map again and again, so you can just really clearly define in what your team is good at doing on that map and how you can win on that map, and then sort of a trial and error or evolutionary design process for your drop decks. I really appreciated that, and that's why I was a little bit disappointed to see HPG Manifold get taken out of the thing, because I was like, we're just clicking in with this at what we're going to do in HPG, and it's getting taken away. So it's a little bit of a selfish, perhaps, way of looking at it, but I did like that aspect of it.
It was kind of the problem too, was that some teams got overly honed in on it, and it made it one-sided depending on who got up on the wall first.
Yeah, in terms of HG, it was just personally, HPG is my favorite map. But that being said, I understand the concerns because it really did matter on who got the wall first, and then everyone else just had to hide in base. And so it did kind of make sense from a balance perspective to swap it out once it just got too dominant. And then we had a lot of people voice concerns, so it's sort of like, okay, probably got to talk about it. So we actually brought it up in the team leader chat, had a vote, made sure that it was majority of people that it was actually decently high majority. It was like 75% were in favor of actually swapping the map over. So we wanted to make sure that we were as transparent as possible. We had like a week-long discussion about swapping over the pros and cons. But like you said, having this small map pool really allows you to focus down on the strategies, and you can actually see your strategies evolve over time. Kind of like what we saw with Grim, actually. Like initially the fights were around Kappa and the center part of the map, and then it shifted over to the backside around Epsilon Gamma on the exact opposite side of the map, because you could more easily control the two cap points there, which brought in a whole different dynamic, because initially it was more of a mid-range fight around Kappa, and then it turned into an extreme long-range fight at the corner map. So it was kind of cool to see actually the map strategy evolve, even on that small map set. So I thought that was kind of cool. But we also didn't want to limit it to one map like World Champion 2017, which was Abysmal Canyon for like 95 drops or some crap like that.
And it should be interesting too if we do a scaling on the tonnage and then also continue our map rotation. It'll probably throw a little bit more variability in, and it would probably, unfortunately, like you said, make it harder to hone in your strategy per map, because you may not always get the same tonnage for that map. So that's something we'll be looking at considering for the next go round.
Exactly.
How to pair that up.
Yeah, that's the kind of the point that I was tangentially making, that if you are swinging the tonnage around, you're not going to be able to recycle those drop decks and strategies. You're not necessarily going to translate into an assault heavy drop, or conversely into a very light drop. It's going to play out very differently.
We might have to make some tonnage and map pairings, maybe.
I really did like that aspect of ISC, that honing in, that how does it work for us? How does this map work for us? And we never quite got there with some maps, and other maps we just owned up on, which was cool. And and you got the additional sort of aspect that if you got a sort of clicked into the meta in your first drop, or you sort of saw something, like I think we started out on Grimplexus with going for those side caps because we'd seen it in a previous tournament long ago. That let us get the jump on people early on, and then it sort of catches on, and then you've got to go, well, now they're going to do it too, so how are we going to adapt to that? And I quite like that.
Right, and then you got
You know,
to figure out how do we actually counter the same
second-guessing
strategy that we
everything.
used.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How do we beat ourselves now?
Yeah. Although if you're as well, it's pretty easy. I'm just kidding.
Is that exactly 100% true, Notbob?
I
I think we
plead
did
the
face
fifth.
you, actually.
Yeah, I think we actually did fight each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 3-2, I think. You guys managed to snaffle a couple of drops off us.
Yeah, we had fun, even though we had a ridiculously hard schedule. It was a lot of fun playing all these cool teams.
Yeah, cool. The max 5 of a chassis, we had like you could bring 5 Vulcans across the course of all the drops. Did you stick with 5 or
Yeah.
change it up?
Yeah, probably gonna stick with 5. It's a nice, easy number, and you don't have to do too much tinkering to figure it out.
Okay, that's a nice, easy answer to that one.
Yeah.
Let's move straight on. About heroes.
So there's been a lot of discussion about some people like the aspect of no heroes. We kind of liked it, but there's also some good points. You can see a little bit more variety mix with the heroes in there. So we're still kind of on the fence about that one. I'm personally leaning towards no heroes. I want to still make it as C-bill friendly as possible. So, the first iteration of ISC was geared towards new teams or new to comp teams. So we only had one big name that entered it, and that was 228 back in time. And we quite literally disallowed any other team that we thought would way overperform versus everyone else. But with that term right there, we wanted to make it quite easy and simple and accessible to everyone. And that's kind of where the no heroes, inner sphere only thing came from. So we kind of want to continue that trend.
Okay. Well, if I can give you a couple of counterpoints here.
Go for it.
One, the game's old, and there's a lot of events that give you MC. There's a lot of ways of getting MC if you're a free-to-play player. There's a lot of ways even of getting hero mix without necessarily putting any money down on the table. So that's one thing, is that I think heroes are quite accessible. Sales every week, it seems like at the moment, 40-50% off sales. And the other thing that I'd say, and I'll get you to respond to both, is that I don't think heroes are must-haves anyway. I think they're just another option on the table. I think there's very few, especially if you limit it down to just Innisphere, there's very, very few heroes that are better than the standard variants that are must-haves. IV4, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Most heroes generally are not better than the SIBO counterparts. It's more like the spirit, like, hey, we don't want that in general. Even though I agree with you on all these points, MC is very easy to come by if you play the game. Heroes are pretty accessible with all the MC you get and all the mech bays you can get, all jazz. So it is decently accessible, but the fact is that it still is an option to pay money for it. And so we will kind of want to try and limit it to just C-bills. So that's it. That way there's no confusion. And in case somebody wins today, I don't want to hear any whining about, it's pay to win, even though that's kind of bullcrap.
Yeah, there really is very few, I think. I think the IV4 is good, but maybe not strong in a 6v6 because, if it was the same structure as before, MRMs are not great versus light mechs or lighter mechs, fast movers and things like that. It's really hard
maybe
to
if
get
we
on
do
the
that
wall and
graduating
target.
tons with heavier mechs, maybe you'd see it more because MRMs do just sandblast armor off, but yeah, they're not great against lighter mechs.
Grinner would be another one. It's still probably not as good as the Wolfhound 2, and I mean it can bring ECM, but yeah.
But ECM is kind of meh.
Cool. Was there anything else you guys are looking up changing in terms of the sort of competition rules?
I think a couple things that we are also going to be changing is actually the Swiss system itself. We've been looking into different styles of the Swiss, or even having like a multi-stage tournament of it.
As a really quick primer for anyone who hadn't followed the tournament until now or doesn't know what the Swiss is, can you give us a 30-second version?
So what the Swiss system is, it's a tournament designed around matching seeds, and basically the whole idea of Swiss is to get better matches as you go on in the tournament, pairing your initial ranking with each other, and it's a graduating tourney versus your round robin, which is where you play everyone once and then you go on to like a finals whatnot. Where Swiss is, you might not necessarily play everyone, but you'll play 6 weeks based on your seeds against each other. So it's a different style of sorting. that really hasn't been used too often before in MechWarrior. That's kind of a quick cut of Swiss, no pun intended.
And what sort of changes were you looking at making to that?
And so the sort of changes we're thinking about doing is from the traditional seating high versus low, we were thinking about doing direct seating. So the matches actually won't necessarily get better as the matches go on, but you'll get your better matches first. So it'll be seeding number 1 seed versus number 2 seed, and number 3 seed versus number 4 seed, number 5 seed versus number 6 seed. And the second week will be number 1 seed versus number 3 seed, number 2 seed versus number 5 seed, depending on who wins, obviously. So that would make a different style of Swiss. We're still kind of on the fence about that one. We haven't made any decision. I'm personally not a fan of that one. But that's one thing that we could potentially change. But the main thing that we're probably going to be doing is a twofold tournament system. So we're going to simulate the initial 2 rounds of Swiss seeding. So number 1 team isn't going to be playing the number 17 seed in this case. And then we're going to have, so those first 2 weeks we simulate. So we'll kind of half pair everyone to begin with. Then do 4 weeks of Swiss. So we'll be basically playing weeks 4 through 6 in this system. And then from there, after those 4 weeks, I think, or even 5 weeks, we're going to do a 2 or 3 week round robin tournament at the end of it based on those ending seedings to get everyone like a playoff feel that these guys are the number 1 versus number 2. And then everyone plays 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, so on and so forth to get those final spots there. So it has like a real ending to it rather than just, okay, it ends.
Would that translate into sort of a similar kind of length of the tournament, like 6 weeks?
Yeah, so think about either 6 or 7 weeks, or it might be potentially a little bit longer because the field 6 weeks for just Swiss was a little short. So we'll translate into a slightly longer tournament, which I think actually would work out well. Because generally with Swiss, you want to do about, I think for like 30 teams, you want to do about 6 to 7 weeks of Swiss. That's generally like the recommendation there.
Would that mean that we'd end up playing the same people again?
No, Swiss actually will not let you play the same people again.
So yeah, with the idea of doing the simulated, you actually have instantaneously 2 of those 6 rounds done immediately. So we would have to extend out or do 4 rounds instead, plus the round robin at the end, or just extend out the Swiss. But we think that would be a good way to set up that initial seeding. We'll use the seeding based on, for example, Jarl's list, but probably the top 8 players of each team instead of the whole team, which diluted some of the overall skill levels. And then that first 2 weeks of simulated play that happens instantaneously, it'll just set up the first set of matches, and everybody should be in a good place at that point.
Right. And what about some of the other sort of, if you want to call it, administration sides of the tournament?
We're definitely going to get rid of having an odd number of teams to begin with. We can't control teams dropping out, but we want to avoid the situation that we had this time where teams are getting buys and then not able to win matches. And the only way to get MC for the MC reward, not the final rewards, but during the tournament rewards, was to actually drop and win matches.
Yeah, that was an unusual aspect to your tournament as well. You got sort of MC per win.
I think it was probably one of my favorite parts of this tournament. It was actually, I can't take credit for it. Actually, that was your idea. You brought up in one of our...
Oh, yeah. Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you mentioned that in the first interview you did with us, and I was like, that's a really good idea. And so we went with that because we were talking at that time about a tiered reward system, and the MC per drop kind of added in all these cool aspects that I've always liked about BattleTech. Was basically like being a mercenary and going there and earning your pay, right? And so each team had to go in and earn their pay, and they did that by taking away drops. It also allowed every single team in the tournament to walk away with something, and the better teams to walk away with more, obviously, which I thought was a great aspect. And it also essentially just automatically tiered that prize pool that we were given. One of the things we definitely want to improve upon that for next season is to see if PGI will give us more MC per drop, so that those rewards for the higher teams are much larger. And we also realized that our prize pool for the winning teams, the special ones that the Aces Wild members scraped up the cash for to give out, we're a little heavy on the individual reward side, and we want to spread that out more amongst teams next time instead of individuals.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool aspect of the tournament, and it definitely was discussed. Definitely on our team, but presumably on every team, that actually if we lose this, we lose money. It's money out of our pocket to lose this game, or it's we've just won some MC, guys. So that's it was a really tangible incentive to win, which was great, and it's cool that little idea, off the cuff idea that we had together in that first podcast played out and worked out well for you. So that was good. And coming back to the second thing you said, I think if you're relating back your special prizes, what were the special categories, like a couple of them?
So we had the team that moved the highest from their initial seeding, which was kind of one of my favorite ones, actually.
That's cool.
And it was DSAG that got that, and they crawled their way up from a fairly low start point to a pretty high one. We also saw some other teams that fell quite a ways too, which was interesting and a little unexpected. The other special awards for we had first, second, and third place for teams, and then for individuals we had the highest amount of damage done, the most kills done, and then the most overall assists.
Yeah, and I think Cozened even said to you early on that a lot of those rewards would end up going to the same people if it was done like that. So maybe we could look at ways that we could sort of finesse those qualifying things next time, that it doesn't all get lumped onto the same few people.
Or even just scaling the prize package down a little bit so that the teams were more incentivized for their contributions.
Or even potentially adding like a new random one, like a cap god award, person who spent the most time on a cap point. Now that we can actually pull those stats out.
and I mean, it is tough for cappers, lights going around doing that duty, because that's not the number people look at when they're that's not the number the streamers look at. That's not the number that your team captain's gonna call out. Good job on spending the most time on cap. Hopefully they will, but oftentimes that the biggest rewards and glory is a better word, go to the person who did the most damage or got the most kills and those kind of things. And if you were just a little flea running around from cap to cap winning the game, you might not get that recognition. So something like that would be quite cool.
Yeah, that's like me when and Notbob can attest to this. I'm usually the bait most of the times we play, and it's because I've got the game discipline to actually do what Notbob wants me to do, go up and then be a target. And yeah, I don't get any glory for that, but my team wins, so it's all be
finished with 57 damage or something like that.
Exactly.
If there's a damage taken award, I would get it.
Spread that damage everywhere.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got the MechWarrior World Championships, which are not going to be the MechWarrior World Championships.
No, no,
the MechWarrior Championship Series coming up, which is going to be a player-run, sort of outsourced worlds this year. So, what sort of, looking back at what's happened before for Worlds, we've had the comp queue in game where you go in and search for a competitive game. We've had stock mode. We've had trigger warning. We've had endless time on Canyon that was mentioned earlier. What can you guys? What advice can you guys give to the organisers of that forthcoming tournament, based on your own experience with running this?
Don't do stock mode. No, I think the biggest thing I'd see is make it in such a way that there's an incentive for every team to play rather than just the top teams. Even though it is World Championship Series, and even though we probably know the top 5 teams, I think there really needs to be a way to incentivize all the other teams that all the other teams to play. So like what we did right here, giving everyone money when they win, immediately when they win, is very different than, all right, well, you placed 5th and you don't get anything. Congrats, or something like that. So I think the challenge is to make it in such a way that, everyone will want to play it and try and compete. Because a lot of times you're just going to be running into the same guys. I know last year when we did the comp queue, and it was only open for like every cup, like, what was it? I think it was actually open every day. I don't remember what was anymore. I've kind of blocked out my memory. We kept on pairing against Eon or EMP 228. Like, I think we hit them 28 times out of our 35 matches that we played. And it's just like, oh my God, this is just abysmal playing Stockport against it.
It was brutal, and all it did was create a will, like it broke our will. We didn't want to keep doing it. We did it to the end, just stubbornly, but we were just beating ourselves against a wall that were some really great teams. And I don't think it helped them at all. I don't think it really gave them any advantage to just stomp us every time. That kind of like that whole process is one of the reasons that when we went into the ISC and we started planning it, we wanted to make it so that every team could come and participate, originally with divisions, and then we went with a Swiss system, which allowed everybody to play. And I think it's a testament for ISC that we didn't lose a single team throughout the tournament. Everybody came and everybody played all of their matches because there was an incentive to be there. There was MC on the table, and there was a chance you could get that. Even if you were playing MP, they might slip up. Who knows? You just get one match in, So like there was that energy and that drive to keep going. And everybody had fun. Like, I don't think anybody came like, man, I just hit wall after wall and wall, and I got so fed up with MWO and the comp scene over this tournament. Everybody was pretty happy with it.
Some things you could look at doing is, with the comp queue itself, it's kind of hard because you literally have to queue up for it. But I really like the idea of actually scheduling out matches beforehand, similar to, I guess, the Abomination of 2017, where it was all can all the time. But if you could schedule out the matches ahead of time, that reduces a lot of the stress about, oh God, am I going to hit EMP a freaking again? Oh my God, please kill me. Or even just reducing, I think there's already some talk about reducing it to just maybe 1 or 2 days only that the queue is open. So that way there's a much greater chance that there's more than just EMP or 228 in the queue. And if there's a way that we can get access, or we can allow them to, like, hey, these two guys are prioritized to fight against each other, that should always be the case with that, just because they're really not going to learn anything from fighting someone like AW. It's like, yeah, really didn't do anything for either team, and it was a completely one-side stomp. 8-0, congratulations, I guess you win. I think the biggest thing is just to reduce the window that it's open. Maybe even like 6 hours, like 4 or 5 hours every time zone, prime time right there, to reduce it even further. That way teams have to be online at that time to play. And that way there's more teams available in the queue. I think if you reduce the window that it's open, that will make it a lot better in terms of getting the matches out there, getting the people playing it against teams closer to their skill level, but still allowing EMPs to showcase their skill, but maybe against better teams where they'll actually learn something and actually be challenged a little bit.
Exactly. You put 6 or 8 teams all in the queue together, and you'll get better matchups from the ELO matchmaker. So yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion. And I mean, it should be said that I, in my opinion, that the tournament's in really good hands with the MWOC crew. I know that they're already talking about exactly all of the stuff that we've been talking about. They really want to get it so that so-called beer leagues, there's so many trigger words in this conversation, but so-called beer leagues can participate, because even if they did participate the last time, they wouldn't have participated for very long under those conditions. So they would have just had a couple of goes and thought, actually, no thanks, I'm going to go do something else. So yeah, I know that they're talking about, and I think nothing's officially announced, so I can't really say much, but talking about exactly what you're talking about, directing people into the comp queue at certain times. Whether or not we'll be able to open and close it, I don't think, because PGI have no resources right now. But you could at least say, hey guys, everyone jump on. This time we're all going to start searching, and then sort of whatever happens, and hopefully get some good matchups that way. And then potentially running a sort of a side-by-side invitational tournament as well, like a sort of a traditional community-run tournament as another way of qualifying.
Yeah, and they're doing a couple different tournaments at once for it. So yeah, they like I said, I think it's in great hands. So I'm not that worried about it. I don't think there's gonna be some silly rules. Yeah, just instead of there, all the ideas they're coming up with, I think have been pretty good so far. I haven't seen anything that I've been like, oh, what the frick? What is this?
My only concern is that it's fairly convoluted at the moment.
Yeah, I think once we get a little bit closer to actually starting, I think it'll be brought out a little bit more clear on exactly what it is. Because right now, I think they have like there's a graphic up there with like 4 different tournaments running side by side, and then these guys move on to the next stage, and then these play. It's like, what the frack? What is this? But I think as the time gets closer, I think that'll get more focused down to exactly what we need, and we'll make a better tournament.
The only thing that I could think of is a qualifying, like a preliminary that would qualify people for a couple divisions, and then I think that a lot of teams would show up for that, and then try to get sorted into divisions, and then try to fight for wins in those divisions. Because if we just do one large division, I can guarantee I could tell you exactly who the top 5 are going to be, and a lot of teams are probably going to be discouraged from even trying because they know that if you break it down into like 3 divisions, the top 5 in each division, there might be some more variability there.
All right, so let's move on to talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty of that forthcoming tournament in terms of what we saw in the ISC. That we kind of already talked about the Vulcan. There's a couple of points of view there. What other sort of builds and play styles? Like I think Cozened covered it really nicely with his comp updates, talking about the capping control strat versus brawl strat, which were the sort of the 2 main ones. We're likely to see that come through in the worlds as well. I should stop calling it worlds. The series.
Yeah, World Series. Wait, we're playing baseball now?
Tournament thing. I mean, notwithstanding any major patch changes, I think we'll see Innisphere medium pulse continue to.
To continue to crush that light and medium. I think we're going to see that 100%. I think we're also going to see a lot of clan UX out there. Take like the Bloodass. I think you're going to, if they're going to have Assault mix in there, I think you're probably going to see Bloodass in there. With the higher mounts, you maybe might see the Mad Cat, but that thing is pretty easy to kill now because people learned, its arms are weak as heck. So I think it all depends on really what maps are going to be played on what strategy. So like if you have Solaris again, I think you are going to have to have that short range, and I don't think you'll see that Bloodass as much. You might see the Direwolf, though, with the Ultraviolet with the 8 UX.
I really liked playing Solaris and Comp. I mean, even though I was disappointed that we changed away from HPG for those own sort of personal reasons, it was, we hadn't seen that much of Solaris in a competitive format, so it's interesting to watch how sort of the strategies evolve on that. And how people learn what works and what doesn't work, and a big in-your-face kind of juggernaut type drop decks with some fast movers nibbling on the flanks seems to be the way to go. I think we had a quad LBX Annihilator in there, and then a bunch of those aforementioned Vulcans and Assassins and stuff like that.
Yeah. I actually brought my Solaris Annihilator with the 5 LBXs. That thing is slow as crap, but on Solaris, you really don't need speed.
One team even brought an Atlas and a whole bunch of urban mechs, which apparently was rather humorous, even if they didn't win. Actually, I think that was a Nace's Wild team.
It's for the memes.
Yeah, you got to do it. Just to close out, I'd like to maybe touch on what some of the favorite moments for you guys were in the tournament that we saw. We've already mentioned the Atlas Irby drop deck. What else was there?
I really enjoy watching Mercstar Crab people because they always bring, at least every drop, or at least every series, they'll bring all crabs, and I freaking love it. It's hilarious. I think they didn't do it against GAGX, I think, but they brought it against every other team, and I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I love it. I gotta love the meme decks. They're great.
It's great to have a sort of a signature move, if you will. And I mean, 228 Blackwatch brought a crab rush against us. So it's not just a meme; it actually is a really powerful.
That's the funny thing.
Drop deck.
Crabs aren't garbage, so it actually works out okay.
And we knew that 228 Blackwatch, because of the Cozened stat pack, were probably going to bring a crab rush against us, and we prepared for it, and they smashed us because it's really, really hard to stop a crab rush, even if you know it's coming, because they're so tanky and they've got the DPS.
Yeah. The 5 medium pulses on there, 5 to 6 medium pulses. It's pretty difficult to get in there unless you can break their legs off early and separate them. But oh man, it's tough. But yeah, it's fun to watch. I think probably one of my other favorite things is there, even though the length was a little bit long in terms of the actual match time, 20 minutes each, there were a couple matches that actually came down to within like 5 cap points of each other for the final victory. I think it was 228 and Cameron's Highlanders, I think, that it came down to 749 to 750 caps, literally one tick away from victory for either team. And it was pretty fun to watch. So there's been some good matches there. And then the JGX versus EMP fight that was streamed, that was also incredible to watch. 2 very, very, very skilled teams. EMP obviously being the world champions, and they from the past couple of years, and they've obviously proved it with how freaking dominant they've been playing. But then JGX coming up and being like, "Yo, we're good too, yo," and they took 2 drops off of EMP in that match series right there, and they made a very, very convincing show. So that was really fun to watch. Even though EMP came out on top, it was still a very, very fun match to watch.
Yeah, some really high-level competitive play going on in that tournament, and JGX did manage to show that they're a real contender for the crown going into this year's World, you could say. I mean, EMP was dominant. There's no debating that.
No debating that whatsoever. But I think JGX will give him a run for the money. I would have liked to see if Eon would have joined in, but I know because it was mostly NA times, that would have been very, very hard for them to join in. Same with RJF. I think that would have been fun to see him in here. But just times have kind of ran. But yeah, I think if they fight, it will be a very, very good match.
And there's more as well that we haven't seen yet. I think there's some teams coming up showing that they have the ability to compete at the higher levels. So I think that we're in for a real show, depending on what this series turns out to be.
Yeah, and that's kind of true. I really like the idea of ISC also because you could really see the teams that progressed up and just showed like, hey, we got the stuff to really take it on. Like Cameron's Highlanders in particular, they actually really surprised me in a good way. I always thought that they're a pretty decent team. Never thought they were superstars like that, but they showed they could easily hang with the big dogs too. So well done on them also.
What about some of the biggest upsets that we saw in the tournament? Was there anything that you can bring to mind?
I think the biggest upsets for me was Paragon Sect actually dropping massively. I think both round 1 upset against them, and I think it was round 3. They also got round 2 or 3. They got upset again. I think that was really kind of telling. Like, whoa, did not expect them, especially with how high they're seeded and the quality of players that they actually do have in terms of individual skill. They're all very good pilots, but seeing them get upsetted not just once but twice was like, oh dang. So I think that's probably my the biggest upset that I saw. That was like, oh hello. So it proves that Jarl obviously isn't everything.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that you'd miss out on perhaps with the simulated rounds, that you wouldn't have the opportunity for those upsets. We had Death from Below lost 2-3 to Crawdads in the first round as well. Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that those simulated, if we do simulate those first rounds, it removes. I mean, it's probably worth it to remove the foregone conclusion kind of, let's start the tournament with a few stomps kind of thing, which is maybe not good for the low seed teams. But it is fun to have those upsets, to have those games that people think are foregone conclusions, and then they manage to take it 3-2 or even better. But anyway, I could talk about this stuff all day, but
yeah,
we probably need to wrap this show up. Before we do, was there anything else you guys wanted to mention?
I just wanted to thank everybody that came and participated in ISC. It was a resounding success. The support from the MWO Comp guys was awesome. Also, Cozened and all the work he did with the database and the statistics. That really, really, really helped and highlighted a ton of aspects of ISC that, and just in the comp scene in general, that we haven't seen in like More and well, I think More had it, but BFM and the old comp stuff, we never were able to analyze how everybody's performing, how the mechs were performing, and then put those into podcasts. It was really, truly what helps make this an esport, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It was really cool. And again, thank everybody for participating. Ace as well for putting up the special awards that they pulled out of their own pockets for. That was awesome.
Yeah, great. And thank you guys for doing all that work, because I mean, you understated it a bit, but I think that it would have had a huge impact on your lives for the time that, you know, those 6 weeks or whatever it was that the tournament was running, and in the weeks leading up to it and the weeks after as well. So it's no small amount of work, guys, and it makes a huge contribution to this community. So thank you very much for doing that. Thank you very much for, you know, taking your units for taking money out of their own pocket to put prizes up. Yeah, and I really look forward to participating in it again, because it was a heap of fun.
Heck yeah. And also want to thank all the casters that were able to. They volunteered their time to make it a really good experience, especially Calon setting up all the stream overlays, making it look really, really freaking nice. And then obviously getting up the guys, MWO Comp, you guys at IMP for setting all this up. It's been awesome to get all the extra information out there, a little bit more detail in it all. Really like the breakdowns of, like I was saying, all the breakdowns with the stat sheets that you guys made and updated. It's really cool to see the progression of mechs and how they perform across the tournament.
Yeah, Cozen did an amazing body of work there, guys. And I mean, if you haven't seen it before, we'll put a link in the show notes for the stat pack that Cozen put together, so you can really get in and nerd out over what each team and each pilot and each mech that was used in the tournament. And I mean, it was a great resource as a captain to be able to go in and sort of scout the enemy that you're facing and go, oh look, these guys do crab rush. Okay, we better prep for a crab rush, you know, or whatever it was. You could go in and burrow down and see what people have done on the maps that you were going to play, either the opponent that you were facing or other teams, and really, once you get that kind of information out there, because some people do this on their own and then keep it secret amongst their team, this kind of stuff, and then but once you sort of democratize that information, it really brings up the level of the whole tournament. So it was a really great resource, and I'll take no credit for it. Just pass on my own thanks to Cozen for doing all that work, because it was really good, and those comp updates were very entertaining as well. I think we all enjoyed having our names read out for glory on there.
Have
team,
about
hearing
5
about
minutes
our
of
team.
glory. Yep.
Yeah. Whether it was for most team damage or whatever it was.
Whoops.
But yeah, thank you guys very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing more from Aces Wild in the future.
If you did enjoy this content, then please consider supporting us. You can do this in a multitude of ways, including subscribing to our podcast on your favourite podcast platform and leaving reviews, as well as subscribing to us on YouTube and liking our videos. You can also support us by sending us feedback either through comments, tweets, or directly through email. Tweet and follow us on Twitter at IncomingP, or email us directly at incomingmissilepodcast@gmail.com. You can also support us directly by becoming a patron or sponsor. You can find us on Patreon at Incoming Missile Podcast and choose one of 3 tiers of support. Patrons not only get mentioned on the podcast and get access to exclusive content, but can even join us as a guest host on the podcast. You can also opt to sponsor an episode through one-off donations, all of which will be used as giveaways for our listeners. So if you had a product, service, or content that you'd like us to mention, contact us to discuss sponsoring an episode. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to hearing from you. We appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next time.
shutting down.